Vincent van Gogh was born in 1853 in a small Dutch village surrounded by gray fields and heavy skies. No one imagined that this quiet, fragile child would one day become one of the most influential artists in human history. In fact, everything suggested the opposite. Vincent did not arrive as a prodigy. He didn't draw perfectly. He didn't show early genius. He simply felt too much. From a young age, he saw the world with an intensity that frightened adults. He saw colors where no one else saw colors. He sensed sadness in places where others saw routine. He found depth in the most ordinary things: a crooked tree, a stone on the road, the way light slipped through a window on cold mornings. But while he saw too much, he spoke too little. He was introspective, restless, constantly swallowed by thoughts he couldn't explain. The world was too sharp, too loud, too overwhelming for someone as sensitive as him. As a teenager, Vincent wandered through life without direction. He tried to work as an art dealer. He failed. He tried becoming a teacher. He failed. He tried becoming a preacher. He failed painfully. In everything he did, he immersed himself completely. And when reality didn't match his expectations, he collapsed into deep frustration. He loved too intensely. He suffered too intensely. He lived too intensely. But through all of this, there was one constant: Theo. His younger brother wasn't just family, he was Vincent's anchor, best friend, emotional refuge, and financial lifeline. Theo was the only person who looked past the chaos and saw the gentle, brilliant soul inside Vincent. And thanks to Theo, something finally shifted. At the age of 27, when most artists of his time were already established, Vincent picked up a pencil with trembling hands and made a decision. He would learn how to draw. Not to become famous, not to impress anyone, but simply to give shape to the storms he carried inside. It was then that he realized his so-called burden, the intensity of his vision, could become his greatest gift. However, the road ahead would be long, lonely, and brutally difficult. He started by painting poor workers, farmers, miners, people whose lives were carved by hardship, their tired faces, their rough hands, their silent suffering. Vincent captured it all with sincerity. His early works were dark, earthy, almost heavy to look at. No sunflowers, no starry nights, just the raw weight of life. Critics despised it. Fellow artists dismissed him. Some even laughed at him. They called his art ugly, crude, depressing. But Vincent kept going. He studied obsessively, copied the masters, practiced until his fingers blistered. His technique improved. His brushstrokes became freer. His paintings grew more emotional, as if each one carried a part of his soul. But behind this growth hid a storm. His mind was a battlefield. He swung between bursts of uncontrollable energy and crushing, silent despair. He painted with passion, yet collapsed afterward from exhaustion. Every canvas took something from him, as if he paid for art with pieces of himself. Eventually, he left the cold streets of Holland and moved to Paris. He had no idea that this decision would transform everything: his style, his life, his destiny. In Paris, he would meet artists who inspired him and others who rejected him. But above all, there he would discover color. And color would change Vincent van Gogh forever. When Vincent arrived in Paris in 1886, he stepped into a world so different from his own that it felt like waking up from a long sleep. Paris was alive, overflowing with artists, colors, and ideas. For the first time, Vincent saw what painting could become. This was the era of impressionism. Monet, Renoir, Degas, they were all there, breaking the rules, painting with light instead of shadow. Their canvases glowed with pastel tones and shimmering reflections. Vincent stared at them like someone staring at a new universe for the first time, and something inside him began to crack open. He realized that the world didn't have to be painted as it was. It could be painted as it felt. He met young artists who would shape his destiny: Toulouse-Lautrec, Bernard, Gauguin. They drank together, argued together, dreamed together. They stayed up until sunrise discussing life, color, the soul of art. But even in the glow of Paris, darkness followed him. He struggled with people, with noise, with loneliness. with himself. He wandered through cafes with a sketchbook under his arm, but always at the edges of conversations. He craved connection, and at the same time sabotaged it. He was brilliant, passionate, intense, and many found him overwhelming. Still, Paris ignited something extraordinary in him. His old earthy browns gave way to vibrant reds, electric blues, glowing yellows. His brushstrokes became faster, more expressive, as if they were alive. It was as if he was trying to catch emotions before they vanished. But alongside this artistic explosion came exhaustion. He was drinking too much, smoking too much, hardly sleeping, painting obsessively, sometimes destroying his own works in frustration. His emotions swung wildly, and his body began to collapse under the weight of his relentless mind. Theo watched helplessly. He loved his brother deeply, but loving Vincent meant living in the shadow of a hurricane. And even though he supported Vincent financially, emotionally, and spiritually, he knew Paris was draining him. Then something happened that would change everything. Vincent met Paul Gauguin. Gauguin was confident, philosophical, egocentric, talented, everything Vincent admired and feared. They admired each other's work, they argued, they challenged each other, they clashed constantly. And Vincent dreamed of something bold, an artist community in the south of France, a place where creativity could flourish without judgment, without loneliness, without the cold grave partis, a place of sunlight, color, and peace. The studio of the South, he called it. He imagined it as a sanctuary where he and Gauguin, and maybe other artists, could live and paint side by side, pushing each other into greatness. Gauguin agreed. And so Vincent left Paris, filled with hope. He boarded a train towards a small town where the light was said to be golden, the skies impossibly blue, and the landscapes so beautiful they bordered on spiritual, a town that would become legend, Arles. But Vincent didn't know that while Arles would be the birthplace of his greatest masterpieces, it would also be the stage of his greatest descent. Because in the sun-drenched streets of that small southern city, his genius would shine brighter than ever, and his mind would slip further into the shadows. Vincent wasn't just painting anymore. He was fighting something inside himself, something that grew stronger every day. People around him saw a quiet, strange man, but inside he felt like his mind was splitting in two. His hallucinations became more frequent. He would wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, convinced someone was calling his name from outside the window. Other times, he felt surrounded by colors that didn't exist. Glowing yellows, vibrating blues, spirals of light moving in ways no one else could see. And he tried to capture all of it on canvas before the visions disappeared. His hands shook. His breathing got heavy, but his brush moved faster than ever. Some nights he painted entire works in a single burst, as if he was afraid the world inside his head would collapse before dawn. Then came the night that changed everything. After a heated argument with Paul Gauguin, Vincent's mind spiraled into something dark and chaotic. He wandered the house in Arles, trembling, whispering to himself, drowning in thoughts no one else could hear. And in that moment of complete rupture, he took a razor and cut off his left ear. But the truth, the part people rarely talk about, is that he didn't do it out of anger. He did it almost gently, like a desperate attempt to quiet the storm in his mind. He wrapped the ear carefully, as if it were something precious, and delivered it to a woman at a nearby brothel. No one ever understood why. A cry for help? A farewell? Or simply the last act of a man trying to make sense of his own mind? Even after this breakdown, Vincent didn't stop. Bandaged, weakened, barely able to stand at times, he kept painting, because in his words, if he didn't paint, he would lose himself completely. Vincent knew his mind was slipping, even if he never admitted it out loud. After the incident with his ear, he checked himself into the asylum at St. Remy. Most people would have seen that place as a prison, but for him, it became something else entirely. A sanctuary.
A cage made of quiet walls, where he could finally hear his own thoughts without the world crushing him. Inside those halls, he painted like a man racing against time. He woke before sunrise, listening to the distant echoes of patients crying, praying, or arguing with ghosts. But he didn't fear the madness around him. He recognized it. He understood it. And in that strange familiarity, he found focus. It was there, behind iron gates and stone walls, that he created some of the most breathtaking pieces of his life. Cypresses twisting like flames, fields that glowed like molten gold, olive trees swaying like they were alive. And then the starry night. He didn't paint what he saw from his window. He painted what he felt. The sky wasn't just above him, it was inside him, spinning, pulsing, burning. Every swirl was a thought, every star was a memory, every stroke was a heartbeat. His madness wasn't a barrier, it was the very lens through which he saw the universe. But even with all this brilliance, the loneliness only grew heavier. He wrote letters to his brother Theo, long, desperate, beautiful letters, trying to explain the storm inside him. Theo answered with affection, with money, with encouragement, but Van Gogh felt like he was becoming a burden, a weight dragging his brother down. When he finally left the asylum, he tried to live quietly in Auvers-sur-Oise under the care of Dr. Gachet. He walked through wheat fields for hours, searching for peace in the soft sound of the wind. But the peace never stayed. On a warm afternoon in July, he wandered into the fields with a revolver. No witnesses, no farewell, just a final attempt to silence the turmoil inside him. He shot himself in the chest, but didn't die immediately. Instead, he walked back to the inn, holding the wound, breathing heavily, as if he had simply tripped and needed a moment to recover. Theo rushed to his side. They talked for 2 days, softly, painfully. No tears, no drama. Just two brothers who loved each other more than the world ever realized. And with his final breath, Van Gogh whispered something that would echo for generations. The sadness will last forever. He died poor, unknown, ignored. A man who sold almost nothing, who believed he had failed at everything. But time would reveal the truth. Today, his paintings are priceless. His strokes are studied like scripture. His life is a symbol of raw emotion turned into eternal beauty. A reminder that even the most tormented soul can leave behind a universe of light. And Vincent van Gogh, the man who lived in darkness, became the artist who painted the stars.